Think back to when you were 17 years old. Did you have dreams of what you wanted to become when you grew up? Are you living those dreams now? When I was 17, if you told me that one day I will become a computer scientist, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't own a computer, nor did I have constant access to one. But today, I'm the proud holder of a PhD in computer science and a number of achievements in the same field. Journeying from a 17-year-old who had little experience in life and the computing world to today has been the accumulation of experiences, spaces, and people that have shaped my career. In the last 4 years, I have actively referred to these lessons, supported by on-the-ground data, to create and lead a mentorship program for tech students in Kenya. Today, I'll tell you how that journey influenced my idea of mentorship, and drawing from that experience, I'll share 4 qualities of an effective mentorship program. I hope that this information will be useful for mentees who are looking for mentorship programs to join, and for mentors who wish to start or evaluate the existing programs. This is me at 17 years old, fresh on the grounds of my university, where I had the first consistent interaction with computers. I had just enrolled for a degree in mathematics and computer science, more for the mathematics and not computer science. But my innate abilities in maths made me get fascinated by the logical nature of subjects like computer programming. My lack of computing experience was trumped by tapping into an existing skill, having supportive teachers, and finding a mentor in my mathematics professor. I admired many things in my mentor, from his vast knowledge in his field to his quiet sense of humor. One time, I asked him how I could deal with exhaustion when I had to sit in the library for long hours to study. And he said to me, whenever you feel like that, just stand by the window and look into the horizon. And as you do that, imagine your dreams. 4 years later, as I was graduating and I stood up to receive my conferment, my lecturers watched with pride as my parents emerged from the crowd and put flowers around my neck. At that moment, I knew that I could be anything I wanted to be. Today, when I think back to those formative years of my life, I appreciate that I had an environment that allowed me to choose which skill resonated with me. That even though I basked in inexperience, it nurtured the curiosity that continues to shape me into the computer scientist I am today. It represented what Steven Spielberg, one of the greatest filmmakers of our time, said: mentorship is not about creating someone in your own image, but allowing them to create themselves. However, I'm humbly aware that many students in many universities around the world may not have such opportunities nor such support. Therefore, creating safe spaces that allow vulnerability and nurture curiosity is the first quality of an effective mentorship program. Safe spaces. A year and a half later, I was working as a teaching assistant. I dedicated time to apply for postgraduate programs. And on one of those days, at the end of the day, I decided to check my emails before heading home. At the top of my inbox was one from the University of Oxford. I nervously clicked on it, and as the email opened, it was as if I was acting out an out-of-body experience right before my very eyes. I was looking at a full scholarship to support the entirety of my postgraduate studies. In excitement, I switched off the computer and rushed home. But I was so in disbelief that I didn't share the news with anyone for 2 days. Months later, armed with my bags and the excitement of 1,000 fires, traveling alone, I boarded the plane for the first time and left the continent of Africa. 6,913 kilometers later, I arrived at the University of Oxford. The university that had trained scientists like Stephen Hawking and presidents like Seretse Khama. I felt brilliant and confident. A few days after, I attended the International Student Orientation. I walked into a room that had high ceilings, rustic walls, and large windows. The room was filled with excitement as laughter and chatter filled the air. After the initial introduction to the program, we were asked to take our seats in groups so we could introduce ourselves. As I took my seat in a group of 8, I couldn't wait to share how excited I felt. The introduction started, and around the circle, everyone seemed more accomplished than I'd ever felt. From the 21-year-old who was about to embark on their PhD, to someone who was starting their second master's degree. And then it was my turn. With all eyes on me, I tried to master the excitement I'd felt earlier. So I straightened my shoulders and said, "Hi, my name is Chao and I'm from Kenya." Someone excitedly chimed in and asked, "Oh, did you go to the University of Nairobi?" I smiled back and said, "Actually, no. I went to Kenya Methodist University, which is in a town called Meru. That's about 200 kilometers from Nairobi." "Oh," my group member replied, visibly expressing that he had never heard of it. And that was my first real encounter with imposter syndrome, and it wasn't the last. Maya Angelou, who was a nominee for the Pulitzer and also won several Grammy Awards, said that she sometimes felt like an imposter, that even though she had written 11 books, she sometimes wondered when someone will find her out as a fraud. This feeling that I was an imposter, that I didn't belong, haunted me. And for a while, I asked myself that maybe I don't belong in Oxford. That even though I had been a straight A student, I didn't possess the brilliance nor the intellectual curiosity that was required of me. To succeed, I needed to go back to my 17-year-old self who approached the world with fresh eyes. While traveling back home, armed with a master's degree in computer science, I couldn't help but realize that my idea of education had changed into one that embraced broader thinking. Consequently, today, I see the value of creating teaching and mentorship spaces that foster problem solving and critical thinking towards in-depth learning. And that is the second quality of an effective mentorship program. Safe spaces, depth. When I returned back home, I started teaching computer programming to first and second years. While doing that, I yearned for more skills and more exposure, so I applied for PhD programs. And by merit, I earned my second full scholarship to pursue a PhD in computer science at the University of Cape Town. Armed with the same bags that I came with from Oxford, I traveled to the University of Cape Town, and my excitement was 10,000 more. The university with A-rated researchers, and the first university in Africa to have its own public transport system. There, I was privileged to be supported and mentored by two of the world's best professors, They taught me most of what I know today about research and communicating one's science. I worked on a project that looked at designing mobile learning environments for computer programming, especially for students in resource-constrained environments. This project made me appreciate the value of user-centered research. So much so that when I returned home after graduating with a PhD, I applied user-centered research in most of my teaching and learning. As I was finding my footing back home in academia, I started receiving queries from students on how they could apply for scholarships and postgraduate programs. The frequency of these queries led me to call a meeting for the students. And on one Saturday morning, a colleague and I met an amazing group of 40 students to understand and try and answer some of the questions they had. This meeting led to a survey among these students and some from 3 other universities to understand their mentorship needs. The results showed that university students seek mentorship in 5 areas. 1, personal development. 2, professional development. 3, innovation and ICT skills. 4, scholarship awareness and application. And 5, community engagement. These 5 pillars form the foundation of a mentorship program that still serves students to date. Therefore, the third quality of an effective mentorship program is one that centers the needs of the people that it aims to benefit. Safe spaces, depth, people. In the course of my mentorship work, I've had the privilege of meeting 3 amazing individuals. Meet Barbara. I first met Barbara when I was teaching computer programming at the university. She was the only female student in the class, and this was a trend that continued in most of her other courses. While a brilliant and dedicated student, Barbara often yearned for a community of female peers with whom she could learn and grow. Meet Moniki. Moniki is passionate about art and music, but as a computer science student at university, he found that those were often missing in the classroom, especially the intersection of these skills with technology. So Moniki yearned for spaces where the fusion of technology and art was the norm and not the exception. Meet Monica. Monica joined university when she was 25 years old, 8 years after completing high school, making her older than most of her classmates. She started a degree in applied computing, so she often found the need to seek for support in order to gain her footing and foster her towards a future career in computing. Barbara, Moniki, and Monica represent many students across many universities who, while learning technical skills in the classroom, face discomforts, questions, and uncertainties. Barbara represents just 37% of female students who enroll for STEM subjects in Kenya. Moniki and Monica represent students who yearn for support and skills that may not be taught within the 4 walls of the classroom. For example, in 2020, we conducted a survey among students from 36 Kenyan universities, and up to 73% of these students indicated to not having received consistent mentorship outside the classroom. And yet, a 2019 study that was conducted among 20,000 participants showed that the 3 top non-technical skills most sought after are problem solving, teamwork, and communication. To address this need, we can offer mentorship that is consistent, guided, stakeholder-driven, and measured. This defines structured mentorship. Therefore, structure is the fourth quality of an effective mentorship program. Safe spaces, depth, people, structure. Since 2016, when I created the mentorship program and now have the privilege to lead, we have so far worked with a 10-member management committee that supports the program. Each year, we admit a new cohort of students who take an 8-month mentorship program. Since 2016, we have served 169 students from 19 Kenyan universities. And we've done this by collaborating with up to 95 industry professionals and 19 organizations. We also observe a strict 50-50 representation of students who identify as male or female in order to offer a platform for equal inclusion. Finally, Barbara found a space in the mentorship program that could help her meet and learn with fellow female peers, thus gaining access to similar platforms locally and internationally. Like Monica, we have seen students who found new passions and reignited personal strengths. Today, Monica is well on her way to becoming a cybersecurity engineer. We've also seen students who've become leaders in their local and international communities. Today, Moniki is a passionate user experience designer, writer, and storyteller who combines his skills to showcase his talent locally and internationally. I call upon each one of us to hold the ladder up for others. We can do this by offering safe spaces that allow vulnerability and nurture curiosity, that are challenging enough to foster in-depth learning, and that are people-oriented, such that they place the needs of those it aims to benefit right from the start, and that are guided, consistent, stakeholder-driven, and measured. If we can do this, we can impact 1, 10, 100, or even 1,000 others like Barbara, Moniki, and Monica. The late Wangari Maathai said that she believes that those of us who are privileged enough to get skills, education, experiences, and even power have the responsibility to be role models for the next generation of leadership. I believe that we can achieve this through safe spaces, depth, people, structure. Safe spaces, depth, people, structure. Thank you.